Hello everyone, welcome back. This is Graphic and Novel. My name is Adam Sword for the Illustrated Friends. Tonight we're going to be discussing The Authority, Relentless. Look at that shit. Some classic early millennium, late 90s comic book action. Try to get a stand here to make it a little bit better, but that's not super working, so whatever, fuck it. Also tonight we're sampling Foggy Geezer, which is a collaboration between Warpigs, Floyds and Mikekeller. Am I saying that right? It's a Hazy IPA. I was turned on to this by my co-worker Steph. It is one of my favorite beers. So cheers to beer and comics. This one is kind of a reward for me tonight. I know I like this beer and I picked it specifically for this book because The Authority, for those who are not aware, is it's a superhero book, and I'm not much for superheroes usually. I have a general aversion to them, which I could go into why, given the history of comics and as an indie comic artist, what superheroes do to the industry, but The Authority came out of the ashes of Stormwatch, which is a Wildstorm book. Wildstorm recently kind of had a big universe reboot at the hands of Warren Ellis, who is also the author of this book. So details on this first volume, The Authority, Relentless, it's 192 pages. It was created by Warren Ellis and Bryan Hitch as the artist, and there's Paul Neary and Laura Dupuy, something like that. Anyway, it's the first 8 issues of their 12-issue run. It covers about 2/3 of the arc. There's 2 separate 4-issue storylines. It was published monthly starting in May of 1999. This version originally, this trade retailed for $17.99. So now that we got all that shit out of the way, I was not expecting to like this book. I'm a big Warren Ellis fan and read a lot of his work. I've always kind of avoided his Wildstorm stuff, but I figured with the new universe reboot it might be time to go and revisit it. And you know, if you look online, this is going to be listed as a superhero book. But they're fucking lying to you, alright? This is not a superhero book in the way that Batman or Superman or the X-Men is. This is a science fiction book. And they kind of fucking tricked me, man. I really dug this book. I wasn't expecting to. It's an ensemble cast. There's Jenny Sparks, who's the leader of the team. She can conduct and turn herself into electricity. Apollo and Midnighter. Apollo is a guy who's energized by the sun, sound kind of familiar, and Midnighter, who is a dude who dresses all in black and is super good at fighting. They are actually also lovers. Midnighter was on the LGBT list for coolest characters in comic books, and that's an aspect that I really dug. I like the fact that they took the Batman and the Superman analogies and made them a couple. It lends an odd sense of empathy to these otherwise otherworldly superhumans. So in this volume, the 2 trades, one they fight off a mad scientist and his army of clones, and the other one they fight off an invading alien force from a parallel dimension. It's good. It's a fun read. It's nothing I guess I'd write home about. Like if somebody were to say, "Hey Adam, I want to try comics. What should I try?" I would not start you off with The Authority by any means, but if you're a fan of the writing or the artwork, or like the writer or the artist, respectively, it's worth checking out. The story moves along pretty quick. It's a little hard to have much empathy. I didn't read Stormwatch, so I didn't have any history with a lot of these characters. That might have helped. But this is good, man. It's Jenny Sparks is kind of a very stereotypical Warren Ellis character. She's a very strong female, very powerful. She smokes. She's very British. She swears a lot. And the rest of the team, they're alright. The doctor character is pretty interesting. He's like a drug addict who... There's always a doctor, they're like a shaman of the earth. They can create magic, and they possess all the knowledge of the shaman that came before them ad infinite. So that was kind of an interesting ideology. One of the characters, Jack Hawkmore, he communicates with cities themselves by directly interfacing with them, which he walks around barefoot. It's pretty cool. The villain in the first arc, he's, I don't know, a little too on the nose for me. He's like Asian super scientist making clones, terror is his motivation. It's just, but you know, that might be commentary on superheroes, or rather supervillains in general. It's hard to say. There's not a tremendous amount of character development from my point of view in this book, and it's 8 issues, which is, you know, almost a year's worth of reading. It's got to be hard to develop that many characters simultaneously while providing a plot that moves it forward. But Ellis does a good job. I mean, if you like Warren Ellis's work, it's got all his typical, his British wit, his uniquely British swear word combinations. The view of American culture is also pretty prevalent. All in all, I mean, if in the last episode I rated Northwardy an 8.5 out of 10, I would probably call The Authority, I don't want to be too generous, but I did enjoy it. So I'd say a 7 out of 10. See, it's good. I mean, it's certainly not Warren Ellis's best work. I'm not really familiar with Bryan Hitch's work outside of this book, but it's very well drawn. The action was easy to follow. The page compositions were real solid. I was rarely confused, and there is some pretty huge stuff that he has to draw in this book, and you can follow it pretty well. It's a weekend book, man. This isn't a book that you're gonna spend a lot of time thinking about, probably. It's not, or at least this particular volume. I did a little bit of research. The story went on. It was taken over after issue 12 by Mark Miller and another artist, right around, kind of in the wake of the September 11th attacks in 2001. So I suppose, given the nature of the book, these superheroes decide they travel around on this giant ship that is anchored to Earth but can travel through parallel dimensions. They decide they're the ultimate authority. They're the people that are going to save Earth. Which obviously carries some weight to it, especially if, you know, you have contrasting worldviews. And I think it's an interesting thing to approach the authoritarianism of superheroes who decide that their worldview is the right worldview. They've gotten very lucky that a lot of the superheroes we've been presented with have worldviews that are considered generally acceptable. They touch on that a little bit when it goes wrong, and like the Watchmen and shit. Overall, though, good book. Would I pay full price for this book? Probably not. I got this one for a song, so I'm okay with the amount of. I spent under $5 on it. I got it used, and definitely worth that. I think that pairing it with a delicious beverage, even if Foggy Geezer isn't to your palate, this one is one of my favorites. So it seems like the two play off each other well. It's something I really enjoy. It's something that's enjoyable. But certainly not going to go on a top 10 list for me. I don't know if I'd really pick up the second volume. The last 4 issues that Ellis wrote and that Hitch drew are in volume 2, but I'm kind of content with the self-contained stories here. I'm not particularly curious about what goes on from here. I am curious about picking up the Wildstorm and seeing a little bit more about the Wildstorm reboot. I was a big Wildcats fan, seeing what Grifter's up to now, all that kind of shit would be pretty rad. But yeah, all in all, 7 out of 10. Beer's a 10 out of 10. This has been Graphic and Novel. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe to the Illustrated Friends YouTube channel. We're going to have more unboxing videos, start posting some of these sketches, all kinds of fun shit for you. And check out my website, www.swordjaws.com, for prints, posters, comics, all kinds of fancy art shit. Alright, bye-bye.